This year we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. On July 4, 1776, our founding fathers wrote a declaration defining the threats to the liberty and security of our nation in their generation.
But what if America wrote another Declaration of Independence today? What would it look like? What would be the threats to the liberty and security to our nation be today that could be addressed by a modern Declaration of Independence? Would it talk about the threat of terrorism? The rise of AI, the vast surveillance state our modern federal government has turned into? All of these issues are very important, but if I was to write a new Declaration of Independence for America, this is what I would write. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for the people of the United States of America to remember how our country was started and remember the principles our republic was founded upon. Principles such as, all men are created equal and are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Also that, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Those of course are words from the Declaration of Independence. And on the eve of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we the American people need to ask ourselves if we still live in a country that upholds those principles. We need to ask ourselves, does our government still uphold the standard of liberty and justice for all? I don't believe it does. And because of that, I am writing this open letter to the people of America in the form of a new Declaration of Independence for America's 250th anniversary celebration. Not to supplant the original from 1776, but another one to define the current threats to our liberty and the welfare of our country. That is what this article is. A new Declaration of Independence. Why do I believe we need a new Declaration of Independence? Because our federal government is lying to us. The government is protecting the rich and powerful from the consequences of their crimes. And nowhere is that more obvious than the Epstein child sex trafficking scandal. Both political parties have participated in a cover-up of this heinous scandal. Quite frankly, the current Trump administration has been the worst so far from its attitude of indifference, to making brazen statements that imply the exploitation of children is no big deal, to the obvious attempt by the DOJ to sweep this case under the proverbial rug to avoid any public hearing or further public questions about this case, to deliberately ignoring deadlines passed by Congress to release files, even to intentionally redacting names of Epstein's co-conspirators. I say all of this as a lifelong Republican voter who voted for Trump each the past 3 presidential election cycles. I was an ardent Trump supporter. Some people voted for Trump because they didn't like the Democrats and felt like they had no other choice but to vote for Trump. I was not that way. I loved his platform and policy positions of securing our southern border, bringing jobs back to our country, fixing unfair trade deals, and no more foreign wars. This was his America First platform. I also loved his brash style. Where some people couldn't stand his personality, I defended him. I campaigned for Trump and knocked on hundreds of doors for him in 24. But the way Trump has handled the Epstein files has caused me to stop supporting him. His words and actions over the last year have made him look like a guilty man who is desperately trying to hide something. For example, on July 12 of 2025, President Trump said in one of his Truth Social posts that the FBI should not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. What a sick, shocking statement to make. Well, of course nobody cares about Jeffrey Epstein himself. We care about stopping children from being raped. We want to stop children from being sex trafficked. That is why people want answers about the Jeffrey Epstein case. And President Trump knows this, he's not stupid. So, what the president was really saying was nobody cares about the children Epstein raped. Trump was saying he doesn't care about the children Epstein raped. He's saying nobody cares about any children who could still be at this very moment trafficked and raped by anyone else involved in Epstein's trafficking crimes. This type of rhetoric from the president sickens me to my very core. We the American people do care about protecting children from sick pedophiles, Mr. President. And if you don't care, then we will stand against you and we will not stop demanding answers until every little secret and everybody involved in Epstein's crimes are exposed. In a White House cabinet meeting on July 8 of 2025, the president acted stunned that a reporter asked a question about the Epstein case. He said he couldn't believe that this reporter was wasting time and asking a question about Epstein when we are having some of the greatest success and tragedies going on right now. Does the president not think what happened to all those children Epstein raped was a tragedy? Does he not think that children who could still be raped and trafficked by anyone who would potentially be on an Epstein client list is a tragedy? Then in the very same meeting he has the gall to say that he thinks it's a desecration to talk about the Epstein case after what happened to the children who died in the Texas flood the previous weekend. No, what is a desecration is to use the memory of the children who died tragically in that flood as an excuse to not talk about the cover-up of the crimes that were done by Epstein and potentially other men to other children. That is the real desecration here. The president has said that the Epstein files were created by Democrats without offering any real proof to support those claims. The president has called his supporters stupid for believing what he and many conservative commentators and politicians have said for years about the Epstein files. It was actually Republicans and conservatives who said Epstein had a client list and said he was murdered in his jail cell. The Trump DOJ in the dead of night on the 4th of July weekend last year leaked a 2-page memo stating they had found no evidence of an Epstein client list and no evidence that Epstein had blackmailed anyone. They did all of this without offering any evidentiary proof to support their claims. They did this without holding a press conference where they would have to show the evidence that led them to this conclusion and where they would have to answer uncomfortable questions. The DOJ and the FBI did not have the guts to face the American people. The memo said in part that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. So, the DOJ said we're not going to release any more Epstein files. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino all signed off on this memo after spending years saying that if they were given power that they would release the Epstein files. Anybody who can't see that the Trump administration is part of the Epstein cover-up is sticking their head in the sand. The FBI and the DOJ would have us believe that Epstein never blackmailed anybody. Even though we know from testimony from Epstein's victims and from his maintenance crews that they saw that Epstein had hidden cameras in every room and pointing at every bed in his house on Little St. James Island, and he had hidden cameras all over the inside of his New York mansion. Why would Epstein have hidden cameras pointing at every bed? To record people in compromising sexual situations. We're really supposed to believe that he didn't use the footage from these hidden cameras to blackmail the many famous people that we know for a fact visited his New York home, many of them visiting multiple times after Epstein was first convicted of child sex crimes in 2008. These people include former Prince Andrew of England and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And of course, this doesn't even begin to address all the people who visited Epstein Island. The FBI found hundreds of explicit CDs and photos, many of underage girls at Epstein's Island and New York home. The government is in possession of undisclosed records, including financial records, travel details, and boat trip logs, which could shed further light on Epstein's clients. Of course, the Democrat Party is really no better on the Epstein case. There was no real cry from Democrats to release the Epstein files when Biden was president. There had been no real cry from Democrats for Bill Clinton to be questioned by Congress or questioned by the media about this until maybe the last few months. To their credit, all the Democrats in the House of Representatives signed Thomas Massie's discharge petition to release the Epstein files. But my concern is that they will use it as a talking point to get back into power, and when they do get back into power, they will forget all about the Epstein files. But that definitely is what Trump did. He promised to release the Epstein files during the 2024 presidential campaign, but of course tried to break that promise once he became president. Democrats only seem to want to talk about the Epstein files when they think they can use it to go after Trump. And Trump has certainly given them plenty of material to throw at him on this issue. The Democrats certainly didn't seem to care about migrant children being sexually abused by the cartels and whoever they were selling them to in the United States. During the Biden administration, Democrat politicians enabled child sex trafficking on a massive scale by allowing millions of illegals, many of whom were unaccompanied children, to be trafficked and sexually abused by cartels as they were transported north across the U.S. southern border. That is why many Americans, myself included, voted for Trump, because he said he was going to stop the abuse of children on our southern border. But he also said he would release the Epstein files and uncover the corruption regarding that whole case. What he has been saying and doing over the past year has been a betrayal of what he promised to do. I have said more about Trump and the Republicans on this issue than I have the Democrats, because the Republicans control all the government right now and are the ones who have the power to release all of the Epstein files. They also ran on a platform of exposing corruption, including the Epstein files. Republicans are the ones who said they supported traditional family values. Covering for pedophiles is not pro-family. The Republicans said they were going to find out who were the other billionaires in league with Epstein. The Republicans said they were going to find out if Epstein had ties to the intelligence agencies, but when it came time to expose the truth, crickets. Nothing to see here. Move along, you sheep, said the Trump administration. Very few Republicans in Congress fought to release the files over the past year after Trump started calling it a hoax and threatened to primary any Republican who signed Thomas Massey's discharge petition. I applaud every congressman who signed Representative Massey's discharge petition to release all the Epstein files. What bothers me is only 4 congressional Republicans had the guts to sign it. And God bless the 4 who signed it and stuck to their guns under immense pressure from the White House. What Trump did to Marjorie Taylor Greene is beyond despicable. MTG stood up to pedophiles, Trump did not. Trump called her a traitor, but, in my opinion, Trump is the traitor, not MTG. I could care less about how many times MTG went on CNN. I care about who stood up to pedophiles. The only reason the other Republicans who refused to sign the discharge petition eventually voted for the Epstein Files Transparency Act when it finally came to a full vote is that if they didn't, they would be on record endorsing pedophilia. And Trump eventually gave them permission to vote for the bill as well when he saw the bill would pass whether he endorsed it or not. Remember, Congress passed it with a veto-proof majority, so they would have easily overridden a Trump veto. So Trump cannot take any credit for passing the Epstein Transparency Act. I will not vote for or donate money to any Republican who refused to sign Massey's discharge petition. Remember, they had to get to 218 votes on the discharge petition for it to even get to a full House vote. They had to do this because Speaker Mike Johnson would not bring the Epstein Files Transparency Act up for a vote on the House floor. So Massey had to use the discharge petition to bypass the Speaker's opposition just to get this bill to a full House vote. So most Republicans didn't do more than sign on at the last minute to save face by voting for the final bill. And by not signing the discharge petition, these Republicans were actually trying to keep the bill from even getting to a vote on the House floor. Essentially, they opposed the bill. Of course, now the DOJ has actually broken the law by ignoring deadlines in the Epstein Transparency Act. They did not release all the files by the December 19th deadline. At most, by the DOJ's own admission, they have only released about half of the full Epstein files. 3.5 million out of 6 million files. And they have not submitted any explanation to Congress for the redactions they have put in the files they have released, which was required by law. When the DOJ finally released the files, they unredacted the names of many of the women who were abused by Epstein while simultaneously redacting the names of Epstein's co-conspirators. They haven't even released the FBI 302 forms of Epstein victims naming other individuals who raped them. These are Epstein's clients. The DOJ is protecting Epstein's clients and exposing the names of the women he raped. We, the American people, should be outraged over this. Quite frankly, we should all be marching in the streets protesting this gross miscarriage of justice. Let me be clear, I am not calling for violence. But we should make our voices heard, loud and clear. Maybe we should even stop paying taxes until the rest of the Epstein files are released and all the people who raped kids with Epstein are put in jail. The American Revolution started over no taxation without representation. Maybe our slogan should be no taxation without pedophile incarceration. Pam Bondi and everyone at the DOJ who is participating in this cover-up should be thrown in jail immediately. It's not enough for Congress to ask a judge to appoint a special magistrate over the release of the files. Congress should find Pam Bondi, take her to court and impeach her and put her in jail. I don't care that she's been fired, impeach her anyway. Impeach any future attorney general who still tries to hide and redact the Epstein files. That's you, Todd Blanche, and Trump should be in jail right beside her because Bondi is following his orders. You don't see Trump running to the microphone to tell Pam Bondi to release the rest of the files as required by law. He'll run to a microphone to say the country should move on from the Epstein files and focus on the Dow. He'll run to the microphone to talk about how big his White House ballroom is going to be. So yeah, he's telling Pam Bondi what to do. This has been the most corrupt administration and DOJ I have ever seen. These people think they are above the law and think they can get away with raping children. Congress needs to make sure that the DOJ fully complies with the law, and if new measures need to be passed to ensure all the files are released, then do it. In the latest release of the Epstein files, many high-profile names were revealed to have either been to Epstein Island or were accused of molesting children. Donald Trump is accused of forcing a 13-year-old girl to have sex with him. Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, took his family to have lunch on Epstein Island in 2012 and had other meetings with Epstein long after Lutnick claims to have broken off contact with Epstein back in 2005. Elon Musk tried to go to Epstein's parties on the island even after Epstein had been convicted of his crimes against children in 2008. So no, The Epstein files are not just a Democrat problem as Trump would have you believe. Trump's DOJ tried to hide the fact that Les Wexner was named as one of Epstein's co-conspirators in the Epstein files. They tried to keep that document redacted until Thomas Massie and R. O'Connor went to the DOJ to inspect the unredacted versions of the files and saw Wexner's name in them. They forced the DOJ's hand to then unredact Wexner's name. They also redacted Jean-Luc Brunel's name as a co-conspirator. Brunel was a French modeling agent who was arrested in 2022 for his crimes with Epstein and hanged himself in jail while awaiting trial. Where have we heard that story before? Why is the DOJ trying to protect the identities of Epstein's co-conspirators? There are emails in the Epstein files that mention 10-year-old and 11-year-old kids. There is an email where Epstein and his friends are talking about a girl who believes Jesus will protect her, and then one of Epstein's friends says maybe Epstein should dress up as Jesus the next time he sees her and then abuse her. And the names of the people who Epstein is talking to about these kids are still being redacted by the DOJ. Why? Could it be that these are some of Epstein's clients? There are excerpts in the files from a diary of a girl who was 16 years old when she claims she was molested by Epstein and Leon Black. This same girl also claims that she got pregnant from the result of these assaults and that her baby girl was taken away from her 15 minutes after she was born, never to be seen again. What happened to her baby? There are emails that describe child sacrifice. Other times where the girl who was raped by Leon Black became pregnant from these rapes, she was forced to have an abortion by Epstein. An FBI confidential human source said Epstein and his lawyer Alan Dershowitz were Mossad assets and that Trump was being blackmailed by Israel, according to an actual FBI form released in the Epstein files. Which makes sense why Trump is suddenly so interested in breaking another campaign promise by getting involved in another regime change war in Iran. Because Israel wants this war with Iran. Does Israel have some type of blackmail information on Trump that they are holding over his head to pressure him to get involved in this war in Iran? Like, for example, the rest of the Epstein files that haven't been released yet? And just to be clear, questioning the government of Israel does not make someone anti-Semitic any more than questioning Donald Trump or the American government makes someone anti-American. As a matter of fact, questioning the government when they do something wrong is exactly what a patriot should do. The patriots who founded our country in 1776 certainly questioned their government. In no way am I endorsing anti-Semitism. I do not hate Israel. I believe Israel has a right to exist as a nation. Hating an entire group of people because of the actions of a few in the group is stupid and wrong. Remember, Americans believe that all men are created equal. There is no room in that for Jewish hatred or any type of racial bigotry. What I am saying is, did the Israeli and American governments know about Epstein's crimes and let him continue to commit his crimes so that they could use Epstein to blackmail certain rich and powerful people in politics and business throughout the world? And where is all the money that Congress keeps spending going anyway? We're over $39 trillion in debt, and Congress doesn't seem to be at all concerned with reducing spending and seeing where all the money is going to in these massive spending bills that nobody reads all the way through. How do we know that Congress isn't sending money to pedophiles or funding Epstein's co-conspirators? Congress needs to get serious about cutting spending. Is some of this money going to fund these large AI data centers that are going up in various places all over the country? Like the one proposed in Utah that will consume more power than the entire state of Utah currently consumes. This data center will also use massive amounts of water in an already drought-stricken area. Are these AI centers going to be used to increase spying on and collect more information on American citizens? Once again, the American government seems more concerned about taking away the rights of law-abiding Americans than they are about protecting our children from pedophiles. Why is it that Trump is suddenly so concerned about Iran after he told us that he obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities last year in that bombing raid? I think he's trying to divert our attention from the Epstein files, and what better way to do that than to start a war? Remember, this war started in February around the same time that the new 3.5 million Epstein files were released. Trump thought a war would help his popularity in the polls. It hasn't. Why should we think Trump and all his warhawk pals like Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin, who tried to get us to stop asking questions about the Epstein files, care about the people of Iran or any other people for that matter? They certainly don't care about the kids that Epstein abused, or they would be pushing harder for the release of the Epstein files. So why do people who protect pedophiles want to start a war? Probably just to make money for their friends and distract from the Epstein files. Don't get me wrong, I'm no fan of the Iranian regime. They are evil and the way they treat their people is despicable. Radical Islamic terrorism is antithetical to Western values. But we need to get rid of these pedophiles in our government and drastically cut government spending before we even think about getting involved in another war in the Middle East. If our government is actively protecting pedophiles, then how can we say that we are any better than Iran? Maybe Israel does have dirt on Trump. At one point in the Iran war, there was even talk that Trump was considering putting American troops on the ground in Iran when Israel was saying they would not put any of their troops on the ground even if America does. Trump was almost acting like Israel's serf. We are the United States of America. We do not let another country that we are fighting a war for sit it out while we do their dirty work for them. I will not be a serf for another country. I will not go fight a war to help be a distraction for pedophiles or help the Israeli government who probably knew what Epstein was doing with those kids. The President and the Congress are betraying the American people and are in open rebellion against the U.S. Constitution by refusing to seek a congressional declaration of war, and they are participating in crimes against humanity by actively trying to hide the Epstein files. So yes, I do think that this war is just another way to distract us from the Epstein files and Trump's involvement in them. As a matter of fact, Trump probably wanted to go into Iran to get Israel and the Arab nations in the Middle East endorsement of his new Board of Peace and his relocation plan for Gaza, which would remove the people of Gaza and make way for a new Gaza Beach resort with the finest buildings and hotels all built by Trump's companies, making him once again filthy rich. And Trump would continue to be the chairman of this new Board of Peace even after he is no longer president. It's all about power and money. All that stands in the way are those pesky little Epstein files that show just how involved in Epstein's scandal Trump was. Since this year is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, I am proposing that we need another Declaration of Independence. That is what this article that I have written is. A new Declaration of Independence. Again, not to supplant the old one, but another one to reaffirm our God-given rights against new enemies to our liberty and security. I am asking every American to sign their name to this new declaration just as our founders signed the original declaration in 1776. We need to declare our independence from the Epstein class and the worldwide child sex trafficking network they ran. We need to declare our independence from the rogue intelligence agencies, both foreign and domestic, that Epstein either worked for or they knew about his crimes and did nothing about them. It is a fact that the FBI took the statements of Epstein survivors like Maria Farmer, who told the FBI what Epstein was doing all the way back in 1996, and they did not prosecute Epstein for decades. There are good people in the intelligence agencies, but there is something rotten to the core about them if they participated in this cover-up for so long. Our elected officials need to do a thorough investigation of these intelligence agencies to determine what exactly they knew about Epstein's activities and who exactly in these organizations covered up Epstein's crimes. We know from the files that Epstein was a suspected Mossad asset, and in the early 2000s Epstein told one newspaper that he did work for the CIA. We also need to declare our independence from the corrupt political class and two-party political system that has protected the Epstein class by refusing to prosecute any of Epstein's co-conspirators and actively tried to prevent the release of the Epstein files over several presidential administrations. This cover-up has spanned 4 different presidential administrations, both Republican and Democrat, and in many instances these politicians even actively participated in the Epstein class's abuse of children. Both parties participated in the cover-up. We need to have more serious voting options than just Republican and Democrat. I could have written about threats to our liberty from the unknown implications of AI and the massive surveillance state that our federal government has grown into. I could have talked about potential threats to our freedom of speech, but there simply wasn't enough time. How do we declare our independence from these groups in a practical way? In more than just words? We need to declare our independence from the Epstein class and the politicians who protect them by all promising that we will only vote for candidates who will demand the full release of the Epstein files and demand a full and open investigation into the allegations of the files, and that Epstein's co-conspirators be prosecuted. And we will not vote for any politician who in any way tried to keep the Epstein files hidden. What we really should be doing is promising to vote against any congressman who refused to sign Thomas Massey's discharge petition to release the